Let's talk about Bell Canada. They're banning poinsettias in an office that has hundreds of people because one person might become, well, dead, I guess. Elizabeth Goldenberg joins us right now from One Spot Allergy. Have you ever heard of this before?
I have. Allergy to poinsettias, the way it's being reported, what they really should be saying is allergy to latex. The sap of poinsettias shares common proteins to latex. So when you pinch off flowers or leaves from the plant, you see a milky white sap. It gets on your fingers, obviously, and it's that sap that can get spread around as workers touch items like tables, keyboards, and doorknobs.
So if I pick up the poinsettia and I move it around, and then I could leave some residue on a keyboard, and then that one woman in a office of 500 might touch it, you think this is a reasonable move on behalf of the company?
Well, there's a couple things to think about first. This worker's doctor has verified that for her, any contact with poinsettias or their residue could be life-threatening. So underscore the word contact. The sap could definitely get on surfaces that he or she would come in contact with, yes.
So when you say underscore the word contact, are you telling me that simply the fact that I touched it and then I touch a keyboard and then you, with the allergy, touch the keyboard, that's not contact?
That is contact. If you've had poinsettias in your home, you know there's milky sap kind of drips out of them at times. You definitely have to remove dead flowers and dead leaves. That's when you would get the allergen on your hands. But I want to point out, some people don't need to actually touch their allergen to react. They can have an airborne reaction. And just like having a bunch of latex-containing balloons in the workplace, poinsettias can cause an airborne reaction. Now, the doctor hasn't said she's airborne, but I do know of an individual who is airborne to poinsettias. So we're just framing it and keeping the medical side of this in mind, and this individual's specific allergic situation, the verification from their doctor, it may be a reasonable accommodation.
You think it's reasonable?
Well, employees are entitled to reasonable accommodations in their workplace. The Ontario Human Rights Code and the Human Resources policies dictate this. This employee might have tolerated them in the same space last Christmas season, but in this, you have to think about the individual. Her allergy may have progressed to the point that she's more sensitive to contact,
sure,
or even airborne reactive.
But how is reasonable defined? I mean, if I have an allergy and I am unreasonable in my demands, is it thus then reasonable for the employer to respond by banning poinsettias? And I want to point out that I'm not saying that that's the case in this issue, but how is reasonable defined?
Well, I mean, let's underscore the risk to this person. They've said that the contact with poinsettias or their residue could be life-threatening. And if we don't all know yet, we should know that allergic reactions can kill, right? You can go into anaphylactic shock if you're not given life-saving treatment almost immediately, certainly within the first 5 minutes, and transported to hospital by ambulance and have the appropriate care there, you can die. So keep that in mind. So when you're considering reasonableness or not, let's also keep in mind that this Bell campus already had a plant-free policy for several years. They set that policy when they moved into that building. My guess is to make the move easier. No one objected at that time or for the years subsequent, and actually no one at Bell is objecting now to removing the poinsettias. I guess they care about their coworker, and all they're doing is enforcing an existing policy to protect that particular coworker's life. I'm not sure that's unreasonable.
Elizabeth, thank you very much for your time.
You're most welcome, Jim. Anytime. Thank you.
That's Elizabeth Goldenberg. She is with One Spot Allergy.